Well, the lack of emotion. I have somebody who can talk about the psychological aspects of lack of emotion, and he is Dr. Gregory Jantz. Dr. Jantz is in Seattle, and he's joining us here today along with Latonia Hines. But Dr. Jantz is the founder of a facility that treats depression, especially of high-profile people. We can't ask him. Well, we could ask him who they are, but he won't tell us. Dr. Jantz, why would it be that somebody is raised because they don't want to? They get a whipping. They get a whooping if they have emotion, because boys aren't supposed to show emotion. And what effect does that have in their later lives to showing emotion? Is it true, in other words, what Henry Segura said?
Well, what we know is emotion always goes somewhere. And what I mean by that, maybe we were conditioned not to show a lot, or we have certain beliefs. I don't show my anger. But here's the important part. It always goes somewhere. It may swell and the volcano goes off later. It may transfer into depression. But every emotion goes somewhere, and eventually it will come out. And so when we say, well, I'm conditioned not to show emotion, maybe you were, but where is that emotion? Where did it go?
Wow, what a fascinating thing, Latonia. If that were in a trial, of course, if I'm the prosecutor, I would say the emotion went to killing, my girlfriend, my child, and her kids. I mean, that's an interesting psychological thought when you think about this case, isn't it?
Exactly, Linda. So maybe you were used to not having emotion, and maybe you just got so mad, as the theory is the prosecution case is that the $20,000 in bad child support, all of that started together, and maybe it just welled. And then at one point in time, there's this emotional burst. But I think what is very hard, and I think was hard for the jury, is that when you hear about such a horrific set of deaths, that the emotion is not shown. And I think that makes you even think that either you are cold and calculating, that even these type of deaths, one of them being your own child, didn't cause you any emotion whatsoever, or you're cold and calculating in your testimony as you're trying to, create your story. And you've got to remember also, the jury knows that he wasn't truthful when they did the first interview with him, with the police. And so those things probably all went together in them making their decision.
Well, you know what? The prosecution obviously crossed Henry Segura, and obviously the jury liked it. So let's watch some of the cross from the prosecutor. And I'd like to then bring it over to Dr. Gregory Jantz, who is our resident psychologist on this situation. If you're going to kill somebody and your target would be Brandy, but also maybe the child, wouldn't it make sense then from a psychological viewpoint that the child that you have is the first one you drown, if that's the motive and Segura is a killer?
It certainly could, and apparently that was likely. It appears true here. One of the things that I am seeing is, we talked about emotion, the disconnect that apparently comes across to me as I view this, a disconnect which makes a person even more unbelievable. We're constantly searching for more, and we want more of a reaction. We want more information. And this is a challenge for me as I watch this. And then I look at the children and I think about the process of how they were murdered. This is difficult to see.
It's a very difficult case. And obviously, whenever you try a case like this, you worry that the death of children will supplant, and the jury will use emotion. I don't know if that's the case here, but they certainly found Henry Segura guilty. Okay, so obviously the jury didn't believe that he was the kingpin that ordered a hit on Brandy Peters and her children to send a message because she had stolen to a drug cartel. So let's talk about the psychology of this with Dr. Gregory Jantz, who again runs a large facility in Seattle, the other side of the United States. While I have you here, do you see symptoms of grandiosity or any diagnosis in what you call the diagnostic and statistical manual by just watching Mr. Santos? And I know you can't diagnose him, but just what you see as a person, as an onlooker.
Sure. Obviously, I couldn't diagnose, but we do have some concerns just by observing. One is, we're back to this observation of a total disconnect, which again seems to be, it's hard to believe. Here's an individual that on some level is taking credit or wants us to believe, but we're back to that sense, intuitive sense, that something is missing. It's unbelievable. And we're asking questions in our minds like, well, What level are drugs involved? Was involved? What is this person's real role? The question arises to me: who is he protecting in order to potentially save his life? So as we look at this, a lot of different psychological questions come to mind. We just need some more information about him to dig into this.
Well, let me ask you this. He is obviously in prison. He's in a federal lockup doing time. We know Henry Segura has been in jail, pretrial detention, with no bail for 9 years. In the generic thing about prisons or jails, when you have somebody that testifies, is there any studies on whether or not their emotions or how they testify or how they present are different than people that are on the outside of prison looking in or outside of jail looking in?
Let me answer that from some personal experience. I spent 2 years working in a women's prison, actually, and I can tell you that the different codes and the prison codes of honor that are present, and a person will actually at some point move towards this, if you will, a delusional belief that what I'm saying is true. They get disconnected from reality, and we're going to see lots of flavors of sociopathic. We're going to see flavors of personality disorders. But a person can actually move to a place where they believe, if you will, the delusion or believe the lie. And oftentimes this does happen, particularly when we're confined and the influence that is around us. We start to believe at times things that are not true.
So, wow. Well, let's go on then. I'd like both of you to watch with me again another clip. This was presented at the trial on the prosecution's rebuttal, and his name is Angel Avila Quinones. And why this is important, because he is supposedly the one who actually did the killing for the Los Zetos cartel, drug cartel. But interesting enough, you will see that he is giving his deposition for trial testimony in Europe, in Italy. Let's watch. So the defense said Angel Avila Quinones' DNA was on the phone. The prosecution said it wasn't. Latonia Hines, he is in Europe. He says he doesn't know any of these people. What gives?
Well, I think what makes it a little bit even more disconnected is when he says he doesn't know the people, he's so far away. It might be believable to the jury with him being so far away that it could be that he doesn't know them. And then this partial DNA match, and then you've got the two competing DNA experts. I don't know that he really added much for the defense's case.
Okay, well, obviously it did not work out because we know the end result. We're just trying to go back and reconstruct why. But in the meantime, you know what? We have more on this case, but we're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. We are the Law and Crime Network.